Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog at stampwithelaine.com. Before the summer ends, I really wanted to have a go at playing with the Beauty of the Deep. These are absolutely gorgeous, and it's got a die set that goes with it. This will cut out the stamped images. So there's the angelfish, the anchor, another fish, the stamped coral, and the seaweed here, and then the sea urchin. And we've got 3 extra dies which are standalone. The other stamp set I'm using is called Timeless Charm, and in fact it is one of the online exclusives. I'm only going to be using the stamp set for this sentiment here, but there are dies to match at a bundle price saving of 10%. Also, I'm going to be using the nested dies, the smallest of this shape. The card we're going to be making is a see-through card. So there's an acetate sheet sandwiched between these bits of cardstock here. On coral reefs it's really colourful, so I've used rather a lot of inks. I've got Calypso Coral, Shaded Spruce, Blueberry Bushel, Daffodil Delight, Azure Afternoon, Smoky Slate and Flirty Flamingo. Last but not least, Coastal Cabana. And you also need a red marker pen. We're going to be using the Adhesive Back Sequins Trio and a blending brush. So now let's run through the cardstock you'll need to make this card. The card base is 5 3/4 inches by 5 3/4 inches, and in metric that's 14.5 by 14.5. So you score one side at 1.5 inches, and in metric that will be 4 centimeters. One strip of Coastal Cabana, cut 1.5 inches by 5 3/4 inches. So that's 4 centimeters by 14.5 centimeters, and you need 2 pieces that are 3/4 of an inch by 5 3/4. So in metric that will be 2 centimeters by 14.5. Now we're going to be stamping this underwater scene in just one sheet and then cutting it for the layers afterwards. So I'll show you how in a minute. This white piece to stamp the scene measures 6 inches across by 5 5/8 inches. So when you start stamping your scene, make sure that the long side is facing you. So the 6 inches should be horizontal and the height is 5 5/8 inches. And one piece of basic white cut at 1 3/8 by 5 5/8. Then you'll need a window sheet that measures 3 inches by 5 3/4 inches, so that's 7.5 by 14.5 centimeters. Now you want to avoid putting glue on these bits here because it will smudge the window sheet. So first thing I'm going to do is put tear and tape along one edge of the window sheet and make sure it doesn't overlap. And remove the tape, only partially, until you're sure you've got this straight. Now I'm going to put tape on this side. I'm only going to put it half of the tape down because it's too wide and I haven't got 1/8 of an inch tape. Okay, so that's halfway across. I'm just going to cut this bit off because it's surplus to requirements. So I want to butt this piece up to this side because that's the end of the card here. Okay, make sure that's flush with the edge of the card. If you're not sure and you think it's going to move, then you could put a post-it note on it or something to keep it in place. And then take this off and fold it over to attach it. You see how narrow that is? That's why you had to cut the tape a little bit. Now I'm going to put tape inside and just a bit of glue on the card side. Take this off. So I'm going to pop that there, and I don't want it to show on the other side. Make sure that I can still close the card. So that's why it's worth cutting a little bit off. You don't want the bottom bit showing on the front. Next I'm going to run tape on the inside here. I'm just going to start the tape off, but I'm not going to unravel the whole strip because I need to make sure that this is in the right position. So it's stacked on top of the other piece, and make sure that it's not showing from the other side here. Okay. You'll also need a scrap of paper. I've cut a 2-inch strip and I've put an adhesive sheet backing on it because we're going to have to die cut these fishes, and with this tail here it's a bit complicated to try and glue that down because it's so fine. So I thought the easiest way was just to use an adhesive sheet and stamp on that. I'll also need a scrap of Calypso coral and some basic white for the label and the bit of coral here, and to stamp the seaweed. For the scenery here, I've actually cut it as one piece, so you can stamp your scenery here and afterwards then you can cut your panels. Okay, I'm going to start with, turn it round on the side, a bit of seaweed on this panel, and I'm going to stamp it 3 times, one on the end and one sort of in the middle. Next I'm going to stamp the large coral piece in Daffodil Delight, and then use the Real Red marker. If I tilt that, you can see the veins or branches. So I'm just going to use the marker to follow the line there. Then I'll swap ink pads to Calypso Coral and stamp these coral bits on the bottom. Swap ink pad to Smoky Slate, and I'm going to stamp off and then just draw like a star across. Stamp again, stamp off. Use the Azure Afternoon to stamp some bubbles. Set that aside. Now I'm going to stamp on these with the adhesive strip. Swap to Coastal Cabana. See if I can squeeze one more here. Now bring in our scrap piece and we're going to stamp the sentiment. Leave enough room. Swap ink pads to Shaded Spruce and just stamp the seaweed. So I'll need these dies. Tape over it to keep it in position. I stamped some in Calypso Coral and some in Flirty Flamingo, and I think the Flirty Flamingo goes better. Now the trick with this is to make sure that you can see the colour of the fin here. Okay, the rest is lined up, but make sure that the colour shows on there. Cut 2 in Calypso Coral, I think, and 2 in the Coastal Cabana, because that matches the card. Bring in my cutting platforms, so the sandwich is platform 1 followed by platform 2, the base platform 3. Put your cardstock and dies in cutting edge face down. Place all the bits I want die cut and we'll run that through the machine off camera. So there are all my die cut elements ready to put on, but I'm going to trim this down a bit. So I've taken this bit of the coral off. And I'm going to arrange this so that a bit of the coral from this branch is in the front. Grab my glue dots and pop it on the front of the seaweed and arrange it round about there. Glue dot on the front of this white coral piece and have that sticking out there, and take a dimensional and stick that down. Hopefully that will stick all the pieces down. One on this side. Let's set that aside. Bring my trimmer back. This is the narrow panel we want, which is on this side. So we have to turn it upside down and then line it up 5/8 inches. Then keep it in the same position, and this time align this edge at 4 inches and cut. Bring back the card that I prepared earlier and glue this in. So this one goes on this panel. And this one goes on this panel. Take the dimensionals off, pop that on there. Pop a dimensional on the back of one of the angelfish. I think I'll position it here. This one with a mini dimensional toward his mouth so that it doesn't show. And I think one here. add a few more bubbles. What I forgot to do was use my blending brush to add a bit of colour to the cardstock before I cut it and glued it on. So we'll just add a little bit now. It's just a hint of colour. Again, I forgot to press record, but I've taken the coral stamp and just stamped on that little strip, and then add a little bit of colour to the strip with the blending brush in Coastal Cabana, and then adhere it to the inside with glue. I think it probably needs a bit of greenery there as well. Add a sea urchin. And then for a last finishing touch, some sequins. And on the inside, and I think we can declare that done. There's your see-through card, somewhere to sign. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial and will be inspired to have a go yourself. All the links to the supplies are below this video in the Show More section, and I'd really appreciate it if you liked and shared it and give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Bye.